This conference will now be recorded.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It doesn't look like introductions are necessary today. Cheryl, could we have your report from the countywide meeting, please?
Okie dokie. Countywide met on January 21st. We were 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. The first thing that we covered was groundwater resources, and we just had one policy in there to go back and catch, and that was Forest Practices Act in combination or affecting community watersheds. And we added some language in there. It's real similar to the language that our Northeast group had talked about previously, and then that passed. And then we talked about groundwater resources, suggesting new policies. A lot of that was work that a subcommittee had done with the climate change framework. And climate change framework is that document policy that is fairly new from the state of Oregon. And there are a couple of people on the countywide one that are very knowledgeable about that. So they worked with that and pulled out, in conjunction with Gail, pulled out some issues and some wording to add in there. And then last thing, we started working on wildlife habitat resources and just got started on that.
Thank you for that report. I can't believe that that takes 6 hours of a meeting.
I can't believe it either.
Yeah.
Sadly, I can completely believe it.
Robert's Rules of Order is supposed to be a tool, but sometimes it bogs us down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Just real quick, Cheryl mentioned that framework. It's on the countywide website page if you want to read it, and I put the link in the chat box.
Ooh, chat box. Never used that in this before. Cool. Great. Okay. Let me get back to my right screen. Okay, review of meeting summary from our last meeting. It looked good to me. Does anybody have any corrections or comments? Great. Public comment and input. Jed, would you like to say anything now?
Oh, no comment. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for being here again. Goal 5 topics, or do you want, Gail, do you want to say anything before we get started, or should we jump into them?
I'll just give just a couple of sentences. So we put goal 5 energy sources and goal 13 energy conservation together just because they seem to intertwine. If you look at goal 5 where the inventory should be, it references goal 13. And in the background report, we put in your agenda package for goal 13. Those inventories are listed. I think it's page 28, 26, 28 of the agenda package. But it talks about hydroelectric, natural gas, coal. One thing that you may have an interest in, apparently in 1975, there was a site identified in Brownsmead, and I don't know exactly where, but it was a 400-acre site that they were looking at for a nuclear power plant at that time. So, but really what we're looking at is 2 things with goal, with these 2 goals. So at goal 5, you're looking at how energy is either sent into the county or produced in the county, and how you protect that from encroaching development. And then in goal 13, you're looking at ways to encourage conservation of those energy sources so that you can make them last longer and, you know, obviously help reduce pollution and emissions. So those are your 2 focuses today.
Great. So let's start with those goal 5 policies. Starting on, it looks like page 8 in our packet. Does anybody have any that they want to pull out to discuss?
So it seemed like when they were talking about wind, it was all terrestrial wind, and there isn't a lot of like discussion of offshore wind, which it's my understanding that you can produce quite a bit more with the kind of modern giant offshore wind. And so I don't know if that's something we want to talk about or list or, consider for the future.
Yeah, so offshore wind, will actually cover that in goal 19, but a lot of that's going to be outside of the county's boundaries. It's going to be far enough offshore that we actually don't have much of a say in it, but we do get to touch on it in goal 19. So.
And at least in these policies here, it's not addressed. It was addressed in our background material ever so briefly. You want to talk about wave energy?
Yeah, do you know much about that, Cheryl?
I don't know much about wave energy. Yeah. And Cheryl, I didn't hear the first part because you were kind of on mute or time lagged or something, so I think I missed part of your intro.
Oh, I was just saying that in these first 4 policies, they list wind and hydro and then gas, oil, nuclear and hydroelectric, but wave energy or tide energy is not in there. So I was wondering what you knew about that. And Jen, the only thing that I know is that when Debbie Boone was our state representative, that was a project that she was very interested in. And so I know that she was very current on potential wave tide energy off the coast of Clatsop County, but I don't know much about it.
Okay.
And when I was talking to Stephen about this earlier, he mentioned another type of energy. Its acronym, which is ocean thermal energy conversion. So it sounds to me, from what I was looking into it, it's essentially kind of like turning the ocean into a heat pump where you get energy out of the exchange temperatures. And it's a newer technology that we could potentially do, I think, in the ocean or the river, but might be another renewable that comes onto the scene, within the next, the time frame of this plan.
Okay, so those seem like things maybe we would add to table 3 of the new issues and policies worksheet. Is that right, Kim?
To go back to Cheryl's question about wind and wave energies, when the plan was done in 1980, there wasn't, they did look at it and they considered it, and the consideration, I think, because of the technology available at that time, was that it would be useful if you were powering a small island, but that it really wouldn't be productive or efficient to be able to transmit it over to the mainland and use it to power, say, a city like the size of Astoria. And so they pretty much discounted it, I think, because of the technology that was available at that time. And then right before this meeting, we do the Clatsop Plains Advisory Committee, and they talked about using just the flow of the Columbia or even the tides to be able to generate power. And they talked about ground thermal, not necessarily geothermal, but where you could just dig a few feet down into the ground and, like the ocean technology, use that as a kind of heat pump to generate heat and electric. So just more things to think about.
So my sense on these renewable energy things is that the technology is changing so fast right now that it would be hard to like write a policy that includes, like, we should think the county should look at geothermal possibilities, or like, I'm wondering if we can phrase something that just like encourages the most sustainable renewable technologies that technology offers. Because we don't know what the best thing is going to be in 10 years from now, because it's all changing so fast. But I don't feel like one of the policies states that yet.
Totally. I think that makes sense, to write it broadly enough that it encompasses that the technology will improve and change, but to make it clear that we want technologies that are renewable, that don't contribute to global warming or climate change.
Right.
And that, that's our priority, for our community going forward, to like phase out as much as possible fossil fuels and encourage and incentivize renewable technologies.
Mm-hmm.
So did you all want to take a look at what Clatsop Plains just did? I can bring that document up if you want to see what they put together.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
As soon as I figure out where I put it.
Yeah, I guess if they had the same conversation, we don't need to recreate the wheel here.
I'm gonna need to get my power cord. Sorry, I'll be right back.
Cool.
All right, so they looked at a lot of different things. They talked about incorporating LEED requirements or green building requirements into new construction. They wanted to remove the nuclear power plant from the inventory, so you may want to discuss that as you meet tonight. They had a lot of a discussion about biomass. We weren't 100% clear on the technology and how it would all work, but they seemed generally pretty supportive of it. We talked a lot about wave and tidal energy and some of the issues, and they wanted to keep what we've got, but they didn't really come up with any new policies, but they did talk about, again, not only offshore, but within the river itself. There was not a lot of support, especially from the Clatsop Chinook representative, for hydroelectric, period, end of story. It's tied in too closely with their traditional fishing grounds and hunting areas, and so it's just very sacred land to them, and they just were not supportive. And the impacts, obviously, that it has on fish and lamprey and things like that. So they also talked about private household generation facilities, things like windmills and these ground heat pumps. And then they actually came up with a pretty good, for this one that you might be able to work with. Their policy says, encourage the private use of energy generating technologies such as solar panels, wind energy, geothermal heat pumps, and other developing energy sources in order to reduce transmission costs and pollution generated by the consumption of regionally produced and oriented energy sources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you could probably take the word private out and just encourage the use of energy, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll copy and paste that one and we can play with it. They talked a lot about solar, well, not a lot, talked about installing it at Camp Rylea. Same thing with some wind turbines, possibly Clatsop Bridge as a place for wind turbines. They talked about electric vehicle charging stations and electric vehicles and biofuels. and the need to support weatherization projects and retrofitting of some of the older homes in the county to help make them more energy efficient. So.
Something that I've yeah, sorry, it just the electric vehicle thing made me remember something that currently is not something we're capable of doing, but I think it will be fairly soon, and it definitely could like help with like our community resiliency. Is that people with electric vehicles, like right now, I charge my electric vehicle from the grid. And then if my power goes out, I have this giant battery sitting in my garage that I have no way of using. And so I think that, you know, somehow we should encourage the technology to be able to use electric battery car storage as a storage that can feed back into the grid or feed back into your house, as increasing our community resiliency. Like, you know, I could run my entire block for a few hours off of my car battery, whereas like right now we can't do that at all.
Yeah, and that actually came up at Class of Plains as well, almost the exact wording about resiliency and being able to charge. So if you want, we can copy that one over and put that in there as well. They wanted to, their policy said, in order to increase resiliency, electric vehicles can be used to power homes, encourage the installation of these types of systems in new residential construction. That was what they had.
Sounds great.
They did some nice work there and covered a lot of topics. I'm definitely in support of Tally's concept of resiliency and the electrical charging. That's great to transfer that over. And before we hopped over to this one, I also like their we were going to work on that one to take out the use of private. I was thinking in the exact same direction that, you know, how I like those overarching goals that are sort of the general category. And I was struggling with one. I wrote, Clatsop County recognizes the need for XYZ. The county strongly encourages increased use of renewable energy and reduced dependency on fossil fuels. But the wording from the other group is great. And I don't know if we want to just take that or play with it, but I definitely want that general statement in there to encourage the increased use of renewable and to reduce the dependency on fossil fuels.
Yeah, I agree with all of this also, and I'm fine with the wording from the other group.
I just had a thought about solar, or really, you know, any kind of like home-based energy, like production, which, you know, one of the barriers, of course, is cost. You know, you typically have to put up, you know, the initial investment to put solar panels on your roof, and that, you know, can be unattainable for people. But, you know, the idea is over time you pay that off, and so, you know, it makes its money back if you're going to live in your house for 25 years, or you know, sell it and, you know, and wrap that cost into the sale or such. But I wonder if there's a way the county could incentivize people with like super low interest loans or no interest, I don't know, some way where the county can absorb some of that initial cost for people to help them if that's something they want to do, and then, you know, they can pay it back through the savings, you know, that they're getting from the production.
Yeah, and I don't know if a tax abatement program or exemption would work, or maybe you grant them a grace period for, 5 years, you freeze their taxes or something for 5 years, and, you know, if they put in
Yeah, something
programs.
like
So
that would be right.
yeah.
While we're on solar, I sent you all the article that Ed Johnson had sent to me about combining agriculture and solar panels. And then, Gail, you sent out the state ruling on that, but the wording on it was confusing to me. Can you just clarify that for us?
Thank you for asking, Cheryl. I had the same question.
Yeah,
Like, this is nonsense.
yeah, the state, I guess, was really concerned about, it's mainly in the east part of the state, but they were concerned about grazing land being converted to huge solar panel farms was really what they were trying to get at. And so they had some limitations on the amount of farmland that you could convert over to solar panel farms. And I think it's limited at 12 acres or something, but there are certain exemptions where you can go higher than that, and I don't remember them off the top of my head. Here, I don't think we would ever reach that scale, or at least not in the near future, or you would see out east. But it would make sense, like the article that Cheryl had forwarded, to take maybe 6 acres. And I actually talked to Mr. Johnson. He called me and told me about the article before he sent it out. And so we had a discussion about that, because he seemed pretty excited about being able to take maybe 5 acres of his property and put it into solar panel use, and then still graze sheep underneath it and around it and everything. So did I answer the question about the state role? That's kind of the extent of my knowledge, and I left it there because it's the state's thing.
Yeah, that clarified it. So I'm wondering if we want to write a policy encouraging small scale solar in combination with agriculture.
I don't know if this is like, I don't really know how to add this into the discussion, because I like the idea of the combination, but I do worry with how little ag land we have already, that, like if it could initially be like using it in conjunction, but potentially like it could be loss of some, like actual farmland potentially. And just hold on, babe. I just, I'm not saying like I don't like the idea. I just get really nervous because we have such limited amount of farmland. And so it makes me a little nervous to like encourage more like alternative use for farmland, even though it can coincide, like there can be some like issues for it. So I just want to like complicate that a little bit. Because we aren't like the east of the state where there's just tons of like prairie land and grazing land, like we're pretty, it's like Clatsop County especially, like we just have such little like amount of farmland.
Yeah, I agree, Kelly. I think that's really important, and we would have to write it that it would be solar in addition to agricultural, never instead of. I don't know how we do the wording on that, but and then yeah, what sometimes happens is that things get taken out of timber or out of agriculture and slide into something else, and then they slide from there into development, and indeed we end up losing agricultural lands. So yeah, we don't want to start that slide away.
And I don't think this is something the county has jurisdiction over, but in some other states, they are able to, as like a community solar project, or I think even personally, like I could own solar panels somewhere else and get the credit on my bill here, which obviously makes a lot of sense. Like if I were able to invest in a community solar project, I'd rather do it somewhere where you get more, bang for your buck. But since we don't have a program like that, I, put them on my roof here, where, it obviously takes more panels and more money to get that, credit off of our bill, and there's, you only have so much roof space and such. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's Pacific Power that would have to change their policy for us to be able to do that, where they would be able to take our production from a different area and take it off of our bill here. But that is something that I do hope changes in the foreseeable future.
Okay, so going back to the concept of the combination agriculture solar installation, I put some draft wording up here that would limit it to 5 acres or less, and that they would have to incorporate grazing practices, but I don't know that that quite covers what we want to get at in terms of protecting the ag land.
That's looking good to me. And, as a starting point, the other groups in the full group may want to come in there, but I think that's a good starting place for us.
Do we want to add maybe an opening sentence that stresses or emphasizes the importance of ag land, but also the need to provide additional funding sources? How do we want to, how would we want to word something like that?
I mean, you could just say almost that is just that, the county recognizes that we have like limited ag lands, and that there is also like the need, wanting to balance that with the need for renewable resources and solar. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Good. Yeah, I'm liking that, Kelly.
Is there a way to describe land that's better for sheep than for vegetables? That would make sense in in a county policy?
I don't know. I mean, it's yes, Ollie. Okay, hold on just a second. I mean, it's all so complicated, and it like depends on water rights and all that kind of stuff, which I know was mentioned in like a different section briefly. But and even with just the grazing, like I'm interested in the concept, but I still worry about, even for other non-vegetable related like farming, that panels can, could eventually, like, I don't know. I'm conflicted about it, to be honest, because of like our, super limited ag land, but I'm also like in favor of the solar. I like the idea of them being together. I just get like a little cautious of it, to be honest.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm just reading over what Gail is putting in there. Cool. Yeah, that seems like a good starting place.
Well, we're sort of hopping around on topics.
Yeah.
How can we encourage PUDs? Gail, any thoughts on that? The one in Klatskanai is dynamite. And I know that when Dirk Rohn, and I'm sorry he's not on today, was county commissioner, he sort of looked into doing that in Clatsop County, but didn't get it anywhere. He's always talking about how the Klatskanai PUD rates are so much better than ours.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the creation of PUDs, Cheryl, but that's an interesting point that we can at least note here.
That's like a locally owned utility company.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I think Class I gets a special rate because of the Wanna Mill, like their connection.
That would replace Pacific Power. It would be electricity. Is that the utility we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jen, I was just looking back at our goal 5, those 4 policies. I'm good with all 4 of those with the staff recommendations, and I didn't have any changes in those 4. And at this point, I've sort of covered all my other topics. I wanted to talk about PUDs and wave energy and solar and farms. So this is good.
Great. Yeah, I also was good with all of the staff recommendations for both goal 5 and goal 13. Does anybody have any thoughts on the nuclear power plant in Brownsmead?
I mean, I'd be in favor of taking that out of there. I have, yeah.
Cool.
I also just want to like bump the fact that the Clatsop Chinook like are not in favor of those dams. I think that's like a really important thing to emphasize and listen to at a county level. I know we don't have anyone, a tribal member as part of our group, but I just want to like help emphasize that should really be taken into consideration as far as you know, resources for tribal members.
Yeah, I agree with that too, Kelly.
I agree that the nuclear power one should be taken out. That was fascinating for me to stumble across that. I was completely unaware of that. And the amount of acres, Gail, do you remember how many acres it was?
Yeah, 400.
Right offhand, I don't know where there are 400 acres in Brownsmead that is not in tideland. And I can't imagine building a nuclear power plant on land that at high tide and high rains is underwater. That was incredible to me.
Yeah. I was excited about the idea of a footpath bicycle path that would link Astoria and Napa. The staff recommendation is to retain that policy, but I wonder if we could kind of like give it an exclamation point or like bump it up or, say like prioritize that some way. I think that would be so awesome to be able to ride my bike safely. That Highway 30 shoulder is terrifying for bicycles. I've done it, but it's not fun. And that's probably like a really enormous, expensive project that is like a pipe dream, but if there's any other interest in it.
No, I was into it too, but again, I was like, this seems like a great idea. Maybe someday, hopefully.
So I want to I also support getting rid of the dams if at all possible. I guess I worry right now. I think a lot of our power does come from the Bonneville Dam, and so I think a lot of these meetings we're just kind of saying things we believe in, but like we're not really expecting there to be a lot of power or like that it's necessarily gonna happen overnight or anything, which I understand. I would like to look at like, okay, if we are saying we want to get rid of that dam, which I do, like what realistic alternative energy are we suggesting, investing in, promoting that is actually going to be able to replace that power? Because obviously we also want to get rid of the coal plants and, so.
Yeah, my understanding was, and Gail, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was in reference to adding the low profile dams, like encouraging that development like in the area. But maybe I am wrong. Maybe it is about the Bonneville Dam.
No, it wasn't about Bonneville. You're right, Kelly. There was a really strong concern about these low head hydro dams, and then there was a policy that at one point Astoria wanted to build a hydroelectric plant at Youngs River Falls, and that caused a lot of consternation. So
Okay. Oh, sorry, I misunderstood that. So, yeah, I also support not doing those things.
No, it's good to clarify for sure.
Jen, on the policies for goal 13, I have a comment on one and then just one wording change on another. Policy 1, subtopic B, the last line says, further consideration should be given to the use of solar energy in heating and cooling all new government buildings. And if we can just add the words behind solar energy and other renewable energy sources.
Mm-hmm.
And then my comment was, again, so goal 13, policy 1, subtopic D, the staff recommendation is revise the policy to state that the county will continue to support, promote, and expand recycling opportunities. And I have a hooray behind there with exclamation points. I'm glad that staff wrote that in there. And as Gail may or may not know, we in East County don't have anything close to curbside recycling. And we worked hard with our county commissioners to get recycling out here every other week. And that was a long one. We worked hard to get that one. And we now have recycling every weekend. And so for us, this is like a wealth of riches, but it's nothing compared to what other folks have. So
Yeah, that's one of the things in this. Go ahead. Yeah. That's one of the things that's like continues to shock me out here is just that we don't have curbside recycling, because I've lived in more rural areas with curbside recycling and it's pretty silly. So I don't know how much control we have over that, but it's pretty silly.
I think we have a lot of control over it as a county, because that's when I looked into it under Representative Mitchell's office. I talked to the lobbyist for Recology, and she essentially told me that it was a contract that the county makes with Recology about who gets curbside recycling. And so she basically told me to take it up with the county. So here we are, taking it up with the county.
Okay, yeah, I don't
with
know
our good
too
old
much,
aspirational language.
so I can look into that. I know that there is a franchise agreement, and at some point, Recology had started doing some of these pickups in areas that weren't covered with the agreement. They just started doing it, and we weren't getting our 6% franchise fees. So I can ask about that and see.
Yeah, based on how full the recycling bin is every weekend, it seems like there is a need for it. I mean, they would. Anyways, yeah, I'd be in favor of curbside recycling for sure.
Yeah, sorry to cut in there, Cheryl, but I was just like, I want the recycling.
So Jen, I'm good with everything else, staff recommendations in goal 13. So just that one little word change.
I want it so it says the solar, like heating and cooling from solar, which that works so long as your heating and cooling is based on electricity, like a heat pump. But a lot of the buildings here use natural gas, and I understand the county's not necessarily gonna change all of their appliances, but when they get renewed, I think it would be important to make sure that we're renewing with like the best available technology that's efficient and runs on electricity.
And I had a question about in goal 13, policy 1, sub-policy B about new government buildings, why that's restricted to just government buildings instead of all new buildings. Maybe the county just doesn't have that much say over all of the new buildings, or
Yeah, I would suspect that it came down to mandating something for private property owners, which meets oftentimes with a lot of resistance. It would be like if we came and said everybody had to paint their house blue.
right.
So I think because we easily had control over that and could really make it happen, it was probably just an easy thing to put in there.
Got it.
But other cities have done that, or I'm sure counties as well. But I know, cities in California have, mandated no more natural gas in new construction, which I would support.
I also was curious about the sub-policy C about the conservation service. And so it doesn't exist is what the staff comment says. It does seem like, I don't know if it needs to happen on a county level or if it's more of a statewide thing, but I do think it would be great if there were some kind of more visible resources in the county that could help people with education around weatherization or improving energy efficiency in their households. I would be all for doing more renovation of my house to make it more energy efficient, but I don't totally know where to start or
or what is going to actually pay itself off, should you, if you had this amount of money, is it better to change your windows or to insulate your attic? I think having someone that could do that kind of audit and that ROI for you, so you would know, okay, this is the first most important thing to do, and then the second,
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about that at Clouds of Plains today, so let me run this by you. So they also talked about retrofitting and the need for programs, but I don't know that the county would take on something like that, but I think that we could help support that. And so the policy that they came up with was support organizations and programs that assist homeowners to retrofit and upgrade to energy efficient technologies and appliances. This should include dwellings as well as accessory buildings, so that if you had a barn or a shop or something like that, to help upgrade those structures as well.
Cool, that sounds good. Another, I guess I'm jumping around a little bit too. Should we finish with goal 13 and say everything's okay there? Was there any other comments on goal 13 policies? Okay, I think we're good there. What about our Northeast Community Plan? Anybody have any comments on those? There weren't very many policies there. Okay, so we can just accept the staff recommendations on all of those. One other new policy idea I had was maybe something around
Jen, sorry, I have one.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so back to Northeast. Under transportation, policy number 3, regular passenger bus service to the Northeast should be explored by the county, and we should replace explored with encouraged or supported or any of those more assertive words.
Yeah, I think the staff recommendation is on the second page for that one because we do have some bus service now.
Yes, I flipped mine over. That, yes, that recommended wording is great.
Okay. Great. So for the new issues and policies worksheet, one other topic I thought of was encouraging more reusable items. And I'm thinking of like how we have that statewide bag ban now, but in other things like to-go containers from restaurants, or I'm not sure exactly what that would look like, but that just seems like another area where maybe reusable or more sustainable. Like I think some places still use styrofoam around here for to-go containers. I would love to see that. And so maybe just encourage, I mean, I don't know how many policies you can, you know, things you can make restaurants do. I feel like they're pretty strapped right now already. I hate to ask for one more thing from them, but if we could encourage, I don't know.
Would it be recyclable products, or would it just be to encourage them all, well, not just be to encourage them also to reduce the amount of, there's a word I'm looking for, takeout products, or more than just single use? Because even if it's recyclable, there's still energy that gets spent creating it, and then it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like before the coronavirus, I had started bringing like my own Tupperware dish to food carts, and they would put the food in it for me to go, which I know there's like germ stuff now, but I don't know if there's any kind of, that's kind of what I think of with reusable stuff. Or
Yeah, that gets into like health code stuff with like,
right.
yeah. But even, I mean, I think like if you're talking about like styrofoam in particular, like that kind of goes beyond like maybe like recyclable or biodegradable, you know, something like that. Just I don't know. But I agree. I mean, I agree. I just it does seem very tricky to like make a policy around.
Right. I really like what you're working on there, Gail. It's looking good.
Yeah, for a long time, I've wanted like every single item that you purchase to have like a single, simple to understand rating system of how much energy was used to create it. That would like help you understand if you should buy like this like plastic reusable bag or this cotton one, or you know, this shirt or that. I don't know. Like I just feel like it's so difficult for a consumer to weigh these different options, and we always are lacking enough information of like the life cycle to really evaluate if we're making the right choice or not. I feel like I'm just constantly learning more and more and more about like what I thought was the more environmental choice is actually not, for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I cobbled together here was in order to reduce energy consumption and reduce trash in landfills and roadside litter that can harm wildlife, the county shall encourage businesses to reduce the amount of single-use and recyclable customer products such as to-go containers and bags. I didn't know what to call them. I guess customer products, customer takeaway products. I don't know.
Yeah, or and maybe just put or when single-use products need to be used, we encourage biodegradable or recyclable products. That was everything that I had on my little brainstorm list. I mean, I had, you know, I'm in favor of more solar panels and electric car charging stations, but it sounds like the other group kind of talked about that already. So is there any other new issues or policies that anybody wanted to bring to the table? Great.
We've covered all of mine.
Okay. Let's go back up to our agenda. I think that's maybe policies. I think that might be it then. You got anything else you want us to do tonight, Gail?
Nothing for you to do. I just have a couple of kind of housekeeping update items. So our next meeting is March 11th at 4 o'clock. And with this tonight, reviewing Goal 5 and Goal 13, this wraps up our initial review of Goal 5. So we're going to start moving on. I know, isn't that exciting? I'm incredibly excited. We still have to come back to wetlands because we did put that off. And Crest hopes to have their mapping work done by the end of March. And then we're looking at working with Crest to do some sort of workshop in April to talk about what the work that they've done. And so we'll still need to make another trip back to Goal 5 to cover wetlands, probably in April-ish, April-May-ish timeframe. But next month, we're going to move on to air and water quality. And then the month after that, we're going to be looking at recreational lands. And then in May, we're going to be looking at Goal 9, which is economic development. And for those of you playing along at home, you may be wondering what happened to Goal 7. Goal 7 is going to sit for a while until the county adopts the natural hazards mitigation plan update, because once that's adopted, my thought is to pull all those policies and action items and just make them part of Goal 7, which should make our work there pretty easy. So anyway, Goal 5, wave bye-bye for now, and that's it. That's all I've got.
Awesome.
We need some kind of ceremony or ritual to say goodbye to that behemoth.
Yeah, big. You can't burn it because that wouldn't be environmentally friendly, but you know, maybe we can recycle it into paper hats or something. I don't know.
Great.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording because I think we're done.